Press O to tell your kids a story.
I don't have
A
kids!
zombie. I'm going to hell.
I didn't mean to do that. Oh no, I'm going to hell.
Oh, yo, it's Hogwarts! Sam. So we're... here's something great. Da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da. You okay?
Half hearts.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah,
And
welcome.
Yes, welcome to another episode of ChromaGlitch.
Yeah.
This time we
I
are
just need to
doing.
make sure things are working. Dang it! I knew the camera would be in the way.
She.
I knew it would mess up on one thing, but that's okay.
Love the intro video.
Oh,
thank
thanks,
you,
FIFA. How's it going?
We tried very hard to get that thing absolutely perfectamundo. Hope you're
Yes.
having a wonderful. I guess today is a Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, Taco Tuesday. I didn't have taco. We had pizza.
True. Taco
Yep.
It's awesome. Oh
Aw.
man, thank you. That we gotta do the thing now.
Half hearts.
Live.
Live.
Half-hearts.
It's awesome. But yeah, so today we're gonna do something a little different.
Mhm.
Because Tuesdays we had started doing the just chatting thing, and we want to kind of just like come in with topics to discuss. With everyone and kind of just get people's input and share our
Have
input.
a conversation,
Converse.
just chatting.
Just chatting, literally.
Literally. Discussions, not so much debates, more of a just chill, like just vibing, hanging out.
Yeah.
Can't stay long as it's 3 a.m.
Oh,
good
gosh.
God. 9. Jesus, yeah, that would be 3 a.m. in UK time, I think it is. Oof. But yeah, totally
Totally get it.
understand.
Totally.
All gravy.
All right, but so today we're gonna basically be talking about. We're gonna start a new segment. One, very passionate about, and it's fictional subtext.
Yes.
So fictional subtext
What
is
does that mean? Oh, dang it. I
literally
didn't
as I'm
recognize
saying
the
it.
word.
As I'm saying it.
Crap.
But fictional subtext is essentially, what's the word? It's what makes it's the little subtle details
Yes.
in things like games, movies, books, TV, all of that. It's the little details that they add that just propels it and what really makes the story, stick.
And fictional meaning like in works of fiction, such as video games, movies we may explore.
Maybe.
Just fictional media as a whole, kind of. For today's segment, I think we're discussing fictional subtext in the medium of games.
Yep, doing
video
games. That's the tag.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be verticality in games. So verticality in games. This is like your baby.
Right.
This is like your baby.
Because, well, basically, I got the idea as I was playing Dark Souls, and I was like, there's a lot of towers up, down, falling, fall
platforming.
damage, but at the same time, because I'm currently playing through Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 1, though, I remember, was what gave me the idea, and it was because there, and we'll discuss this a lot more in depth later, but verticality is say, Dishonored's jump assassinations are a thing. It makes you feel powerful as you plunge down onto an enemy. There's that subtle feeling of bird of prey, taking out your enemy, or plunging to your death if you mess up and get knocked off a platform by an enemy, or ascending, say, Assassin's Creed when you climb to the very top of a thing and do a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Literally is what it's called. Like, there's so many examples of it, and it's such a intrinsic value in gaming, but there's a lot of deeper meanings with verticality in general than, say, just hopping up or down a platform.
Yeah, it's because verticality, if I can talk, it basically kind of, it's progression, it's story progression. It's, you start at, you'll usually when you see it, it's start at the bottom, and then your character, the protagonist, rises up. I think really good games give you the option of choosing if you rise or if you fall.
Or some will even have you start at the top and dramatically fall from grace. Yeah.
But then you also have the chance to redeem yourself and rise back up.
That's a beautiful thing, is the simple up down. You can stretch and expound on that. This is gonna sound so pretentious, but you can stretch and expound on verticality in so many different directions to,
because a story can be more than the hero's journey, essentially. Because the hero's journey is basically,
like, you're just a dude.
Yeah, just say a dude. They're basically kind of your average Joe. Wouldn't think anything is special about them. They might have a quirk that plays into the plot, but it's Star Wars. It's Luke.
Yeah.
Luke is the hero's journey. Starts just random kid. You come into conflict with something, and it requires you to go on this adventure.
Right,
and
like
then,
accept the quest.
Yeah, you accept the quest.
Because there's a whole
go on the
circle of this.
Go on the quest.
But
save the princess, essentially. That's typically, because if you think of like Mario, that's you're a plumber.
Yeah,
you're a plumber.
Plumber in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Accept the quest to go save the princess, and you just go, and it can expand however you want. But it's, and verticality is, because that's vertical too. It starts as just powerless, rises to the occasion, saves the day, becomes the hero. So that itself is verticality.
Rising action, falling action, climax, and that whole type of deal. But, and so, just switch the slide. The first game we have up is
Little Nightmares.
Yes, and
I played this one.
Yeah, I
just wanted to make sure the stuff was working, because I know that one thing got covered up, but that's fine.
Oh gosh, yeah, camera's actually in a pretty perfect spot for now, so that's good.
I'm glad.
But alas, Little Nightmares, I think, well, naturally you haven't played it, would know a lot more about it than I would.
Alright, you want me to take over for this?
I'm just gonna start with one.
Well, because let me go through. Because Little Nightmares, for those of you who haven't played it, it's a cute... I say cute. It's a terrifying indie game. They are making a part 2, which will expand upon the story. And so, this is taking into consideration, at the time that this is being recorded, the first installment and the DLC that followed installment. So, the complete edition of Little Nightmares. So you have six must rise from the hold of the ship and escape the forces that are trying to catch her. That's a very brief summary of the story.
Yes.
And so you have, again, you're in this ship, you're a little itty bitty little raincoat. I was calling her Raincoat.
Little Raincoat.
Until someone told me her name was Six, and I was like, oh. You come into contact with the gnomes, or as I call them, little buddies. I'm going to continue to call them little buddies. And you have things trying to eat you or catch you. You really don't know why things are after you the entire time. You just know, you have the sense of, I need to escape. Okay?
Right.
And you had You were gonna say something.
The thing I was gonna say, and this is very much like an outsider's perspective looking in, because of course I was kind of watching as it was being played, but like you can get the sense of verticality just from the picture right there. You have, as you said, little Bubby.
Little
Bubby.
Bubby.
Little bubbly champagne. No, little Buddy, you know, hanging on the rope, trying to get himself up. And the other question I was gonna ask, does it actually ever mention that her name is Six, or is that just like a
I think the
developer?
I think it's like lore and the developers.
And like the terrifying thing that scared the hell out of me when we first pulled this image is like, you see 3 fingers.
Yeah, because it's like a hand reaching
clawing
up.
Onto the.
Because throughout the game, you're basically this very tiny little person. You're a kid. And everything is dramatically different. So regular objects are like a pile of dishes is a ladder for you. That's how small you are. You were not the smallest thing in the game, though. The gnomes are the smallest.
Oh, the buddies.
Whereas you can jump and climb, the gnomes cannot. You can throw the gnomes and they can grab onto things.
You can yeet a gnome?
You can.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you can use them to help you, like, lever, pulley, and stuff like that. So in the game, 6, you know, again, you wake up bottom of a ship, and you have to just go. You're being chased. Most of the game, with the main one, you're being chased by this thing with long arms. Traumatized me. I think it's the janitor, is what they call him.
Ooh.
But he has long arms. He's blind. So he can't see you. However, he can hear you.
He can smell your fear.
No, he can hear you.
Oh, gosh. So if you even so much as take a step.
If you, yes, like take a step on the regular floor, it makes sound. So it gives the game a challenge. Now, throughout this, you're like climbing up. And, you know, you start advancing. The further up in the ship you get, you start getting to like the quarters, so you have to do stuff. You get to the kitchen. You eventually get to where like all the guests are. And you have to escape them because they just like World War Z zombies.
Just bum rush, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to run, and it's insane. And then, like, throughout it, you're given, like, hints to who the final boss is going to be. So the final boss ends up being, Ma? I think the boat is the Ma. I forget what the lady's name is. But she's there. She's basically overseeing all of this. You know, dressed like a geisha?
Geisha?
I think so. Dressed like that. And you're just like, oh, man. You eventually have to go up against her, and you fight her in a way similar to Medusa. You use, like, a lamp.
I remember that part, yeah.
Yep. You use a lamp. Or not a lamp, a mirror. And, you know, reflect her power back at her. But also throughout this, you have an issue where 6 starts to get hungry. And you're thinking, oh, well, this kid. And so at first she eats some bread that was just kind of like half-eaten. It was bread. It was bread.
I remember there's a meme of that.
And then eventually you're, she ends up eating like a rat because it's like it's stuck in a cage and it's not dead. And then you can't go past. So it's like, do I have to?
Option, but
you yourself, the player, does not have the option.
Gosh.
You have to just sit there and watch this happen.
That's terrible.
Well, once you're fighting the lady, once she's down, you approach her. This like hunger thing happens again where the controller shakes. You go over, but at this point you're just like, yes, out of all the people. Well, because before her, and this is important because we're talking about the DLC and the campaign. The little buddies help you out quite a bit, and they're very friendly. They're also decoys, so like with the thing that can't see you, you can. The little buddy's accidentally distracted for you.
Oh no, little buddies sacrifice themselves.
They don't try. They're trying to get away as well, but they can't. So the weakest thing in the game are the little buddies, the little gnomes.
That's
So
sad.
at one point, this hunger thing is happening, and this is after you've encountered like the people who tried to eat you, and then like you see a little buddy and it's holding a sausage, and it tries to hand you a sausage, and you're like, oh, he's trying to help, and
Rip.
yeah, rip. It hurt. Like my feelings were hurt. But once you play the game and ending, full disclosure, spoilers will be happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I can show you the
For the
gameplay.
sake of context in the discussion.
Yep.
Don't.
For the sake of context. That was weird because this is mine. Well. Oh, I clicked too much.
Oh,
I
okay.
clicked the tab.
I was like,
And I'll kind of mute.
oh yeah,
'Cause
just
that's-
'cause
I don't know if
things
anyone's narrating.
sometimes, or yeah.
Most of
screams
these I
may
made sure
happen.
not to. Some of them we will have to listen to. This one you don't really have to.
It's more of a
Because there's no
visual
dialogue in the game. It's a visual
adventure,
game.
Yeah.
And so you come across the lady.
The music is terrifying. Though.
It is terrifying. And so you have to, do this. I'll let you, since you may not have seen this.
Yeah, because like from what I can see, they like pick up the mirror, flash it on their face, and it's a very interesting mechanic where you gotta like run to the spotlight. You see the lady approaching, and then you gotta like do the thing. But it's that weird blend of like 2 and 3D in this space, because most of the time you're moving, I imagine,
On a
left
platform.
to right.
Well, not necessarily. There's in and out. So it's a platformer, but it's a 3D platformer. So you're moving in and out as well as left and right.
Oh gosh, it's terrifying. She's just dancing around the spotlight.
Yep.
And so like, because you probably have to do this a lot in the boss fight. Just
You have to
like,
do it like 4 times, I believe.
Oh, okay. So it should be closing on the final thing soon.
Yep.
Okay, and yeah, it's like they'll float around there, and then they'll come in from an angle that's nowhere near
Yep.
where they were, and it's just like, ugh.
And like,
Oh,
oh,
do you think there should be more freedom of choice in games to result in more vertical? Totally.
definitely.
Like, with that being said, though, some games are meant to be more linear than others. Like, Metroid, for example, the whole thing was a platformer with verticality. But, like, at the same token, you're moving left to right. Like, with the advent of 3D games, like, I think Super Mario 64 is one of the first ones. That
I
was
think
like,
so.
you know, that was a game changer because you couldn't go up, down, left, right. You could 360 degrees and different elevation levels, and it was just like, oh my god, like this changes Mario completely.
Yep.
And
It's like, I think the addition of choice really helps verticality in games, because it gives you the choice if you rise, or if you stay where you are, or if you fall.
And with that said, the unfortunate reality a lot of times, because with choice comes so much encoding, and like Detroit, for example, there's 5,000 pages of dialogue alone.
Yep.
It's insanity. Or,
And some of that dialogue, some people who played it never even saw all of it.
right. And like, what I was going to say is, with that choice of verticality, it shouldn't be a simple good or evil, and there's like one of two endings. Like, it's cool, but like, choice should be so much more evocative than that. In that it should express feelings, relationships between characters. It should express, like, how you play the game. Choice. Jesus, now I'm the one that can't talk. Choice should have a direct correlation to gameplay. Meaning what class you choose to play.
Yep.
What character you pursue relationships with. Like, friends, you know, Mass Effect, for example, could be more than friends. Like,
Yeah.
that's a bit of a meme, but, you know, like, totally, choice is so important when it comes to verticality. And
Definitely.
everything should blend and tie in together with that. Like, but simple answer, yes.
And then here, this is what I was talking about. But at this moment, like, you're in pain.
It took me a while to see it resumed, but...
Oh, yeah, because you're also, like, that hunger thing is happening again. As you approach her.
Because, yeah, 6 is doubled over. And I guess a little, like, face mask on the geisha thing fell off. And it's just like, oh, no, because you can see the thing. It's just like, oh!
And it just goes for the neck.
And he just vampires the jugular. Just, or it's a she. I don't.
She. 6 is a
girl.
girl.
She. I defaulted a he. But...
It's okay. The DLC, it is a boy.
Oh, okay.
But then you have this moment where
all the shadows
go to 6.
That's weird. It's like you consume and absorb the power.
Yes.
It's like a really jacked up nightmare, actually, where you become the villain, like Batman Dark Knight, I think it is.
Kind of, essentially. Where it's like, you know, you turn the Golden Boy and the Joker turn, you know, Harvey Dent into a villain in The Dark Knight. Because it goes quiet for a bit, and then...
Oh, yeah, like the whole fade to black.
And then you go out, whereas you had been running away the entire time. You walk out into the center of everything.
Oh, and it's just like a revenge tale where you just... Oh, yeah, I can see that. Is she just pulling the life force out of him?
Who knows?
Like, because there's a dude. They're just like...
And it's like there is a lot of still, like, mystery with the game. And once they release the second one, I'm sure some of that's going to get uncovered.
Oh, that was blood, I think, on one. Oh.
Yeah. And it's like the whole time, it's like the entirety of the game, you are running around. As a player, you're probably screaming scared. And then there's this shift. You reach the top.
You become the apex predator.
But it's not over yet. Because you see she's walking. Ascends the stairs.
Oh, and this plays into the verticality we were talking about.
It very much does play. And verticality can be figurative and more literal. Because if you look...
Yeah, opens that eye kind of...
But if you also look at the cinematography, it's not just straight up and down. It's slanted.
And
it's rocking.
Like an actual ship would.
Well, but also, if you think of it, typically when you think, oh, the hero is rising to the top, it's steady. It's certain.
True.
Are we sure 6 is the hero?
And that's and little buddies. Hey.
And again, these were the weakest things in the game. Just constantly being eaten but they're looking up.
And I think they're hopeful.
And then goes into the thing. And then there's one more thing from this that very much plays into verticality. This is what you end with.
Oh, and you can barely, I think, see 6 to the right of the door.
Mm-mm. Or, yeah, actually. But that's what you end on. A lighthouse.
In the middle of the ocean.
You weren't rising on it was a ship. But there was more of the rise. The story continues. So that's the verticality in that. The DLC also plays into the verticality, but it uses a different way. In the DLC, you play as a boy, and essentially, you're destined for failure despite rising. You're rising, and you're still failing.
Man, that would...
And that's a completely different notion, because... Oh,
hold up.
Platform games would always be filled with ups and downs, like old school Mario's. You would have the achievement of completing a level just to have Bowser run off with Peach and would have to start from scratch to the next level. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And this very much plays into that. The DLC for this very much played into that, because there were 3 DLC parts. Each part, like the first one, you're just like, oh yeah, cool. And then this happens.
Oh gosh. And yeah, it's little rats.
So you ascend up a ladder into the light, but you see the shadows, the darkness is still around you.
Mm.
And then as you're in the light, the thing that was chasing you is 6, for the majority of the game, reaches out and grabs the character. And so, of course, I screamed.
So 6 was destined for failure?
The boy.
Oh, the
That's
boy.
his name.
Oh, I think they called him 7 or something, but yeah.
They might have called him 7. I'm not sure what the names of these characters. I know 6 is 6.
007, like these different agents just running around. Gosh.
Because again, you in the campaign.
Oh, and they just lock you back up in the.
It was a point where 6 had been captured, and in the campaign you have to get out. But you see a crate with someone in it get pulled away.
Oh,
that's who we're playing
it's
as.
a full circle and it ties back.
And it's like, despite, no matter how much you rised in the DLC, you failed each time. And then eventually it becomes... Oh, wait. Okay, so eventually what happens is, in the DLC is, boy, he gets to the top where 6 was. He meets the, geisha, and he doesn't escape. So you're just like, oh no, what happened? Remember Little Buddies?
Yes.
Those were the children that got caught. He turns into one. And then you're sitting there controlling it, and you can't jump, you can't climb, you can only walk forward.
Oh.
And so it's that, just like, it uses verticality to just crush you.
Man, that would sad.
It was so sad.
I could not play a game because like I can do horror games, but the thing is like there's always a chance of like hope in a horror game, like hide in a closet, evade the monster, or like in survival horror, it's like you stock up what limited resources you have and you fight back.
Yep.
Like, but
this one,
oh my god, that would just piss me off.
it crushes you.
Oof.
So next subject, you're more of the expert on this, so I will let you take.
I have like 3,000 hours in Destiny 1, but anyways, but yeah, Destiny 1 and 2. It's funny because like the most I did in this game was like the multiplayer PvP and that type of stuff, but like for the story itself, and like granted, there's literal like lore experts that like their entire channels are based around it.
Yeah.
Like, but just as an average lay person, analyzing some of the things, like Verticality, like, you have the very obvious symbols of the tower in the last city, and it is gigantic. You can look around at the rest of the city and just everything is like flat. Even the skyscrapers like come nowhere close.
Yeah.
Like this thing's basically breaching the upper stratosphere. And the point of that being is that it's essentially a launch site for like the Guardians, Risen characters, all of that to like, oh, hold up. The issue with that is that if you replay the game, it loses all verticality because you know that you'll lose no matter what you do.
Yep.
Yeah, and like that's a big thing for me too is replayability. Like
it does. I do agree. It does hamper the replayability. It makes it very much a one-off.
And that's not necessarily sometimes a bad thing because some of the greatest story-based games is there's a difference between role-playing as, say, Joel in The Last of Us. The story beats, the ending is the same every time, but yet there's different difficulty modes you can replay, as opposed to something like Skyrim, where you create who you, the player, want to play as. Like, there's agency, and then there's, like, interactive narration or storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, linear games aren't always inherently worse than open world games. It's a beautiful...
Yeah, it's a blend.
Each to their own devices, so to say. But, oh, yeah. With the, it's really easy for me to get distracted. But
hey,
like,
it's fine.
With the Tower in Destiny, like, these guys will take jump ships out, and basically the entire game takes place within the solar system. That is like Earth, Mars, Venus, different things. So you have the verticality of like space and then planetary. And I freaking wish there was like atmospheric combat or dogfights.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh my god. We can hope. But the point of that being is like also on Earth there's this thing called the Traveler. And it's basically this giant floating, partially damaged beach ball in the air, but it gives off this thing called the light. And this is doing it such an injustice because like the light and the darkness, good, bad, you're good. But but the point, it's a very poignant metaphor having a literal ball overlooking the thing like the sun in a way because it gives off this light and it empowers the Guardians with their abilities to like rise from the dead, and their ghost just revives them and no big deal. But verticality is also a thing because like the darkness, which, you know, in canon, basically nobody knows what it is. These days, I think they're giant, like, little pyramid ships or something weird, but...
I'm not sure. Destiny, you're the subject matter expert.
Well, I also, like, may have skipped an expansion or two with Destiny 2,
But with what you know.
But, yeah, with what we know, essentially, the darkness came down, and it fought the Traveler, and these things... had a cataclysmic like explosion battle, launched humanity into a dark age. So like with the rise of the Traveler coming to Earth, there is also a fall. And like there's a race in the game literally called the Fallen, which they're like these alien dudes where like the Traveler abandoned them for some reason nobody knows, and it went from there to humanity. But for some reason, it stayed with humanity and fought the darkness. So, like, they're fallen and super bitter about it and, like, pissed off and angry. And so, like, the imagery and iconography is essentially that. The tower, the light, and one other thing I just remembered about is, like, it's really funny because when you start the game, your ghost basically revives you in, like, Russia, and you have to run around and find a jump ship and escape. And at that point, you don't have a grenade, you don't have a melee, like, but you also don't have the ability to do, like, double or triple jumps or, like, anything like that. And so you're just like, oh my gosh, I feel so weak. But gaining that verticality, and I guess it goes a little bit into the PvP. It's like, you know, you can run straight at a thing, you can dodge, but when you gain that verticality, it's another element of space for you to, like, take advantage on your opponent. Like, you can go below them and slide, or you can jump above them, or just hover there, in the case if you're some things. They're like, where did he go? Boink. Like, like, verticality is not just important for a story thing, it's important to your PvP game. You know, all the potential CSGO players watching this, or Valorant, or what, I don't know if you can jump in Valorant, actually, I've never played it. But, yeah, like, verticality is important.
Yeah.
Very important.
It's very important. Okay.
And that's actually basically it for Destiny 1 and 2.
Okay. Alright, so the next up is... Okay. I'm subject matter expert on this. You've played a little bit of it, so you can help me. But Grand Theft Auto is... we're going to focus on Grand Theft Auto 5 for verticality. Because I think this one shows it off the best. In, like, the best way. I've played it all the way through, and I think it captures the verticality in games very well. One thing about Grand Theft Auto is the reason why video games can be considered high art now. So that's a very important thing.
It's so funny, too.
And there's a reason for that. It's because it gives people the opportunity to live as someone else. It was one of the first games that really did that, like, not as, like, say a mage or a rogue, as another person.
Oh, like the online role-playing you see a lot.
Yeah, because, like, online, that was mostly, like, fantasy. This really became, you were, you know, in, I think, 4, you were, Nico.
Yeah, very little I played of that.
I couldn't be, there was just so much in 4, I couldn't.
Freaking Roman is why I couldn't finish that game.
But you could play as someone, like another you could play as, it gave the opportunity for people to play as other socioeconomic groups.
True.
And a lot of times, you don't have games that the focus is, you're playing as someone who may be poorer than you, who may be richer than you. Or typically, a lot of it's just neutral, that doesn't matter. You earn money. And, like, in this, you do earn money. But it's very, it's very metaphoric in a lot of instances. And GTA 5 really, like, pulled it off. Because, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, because a lot of games, as you were saying, you know, stray away from controversy. Like, in this game, Mafia 3, similar game, there is actually in the loading menu a tip that will say cops will take longer to respond in, like, poorer or black neighborhoods. And, like, you read that tooltip, because granted, the game takes place in the 1950s, and you're like... Well,
it's... GTA is similar, and there have been people who have actually done tests with GTA 5 in particular.
Really?
Because in GTA 5, you play as 3 different people. Franklin, Trevor, and Michael. And they're 3 completely different people. Michael is Hollywood Hills, Vinewood Hills, but Hollywood Hills, you know, rich, you know, movie producer. You know, Franklin is, you know, just this, like, younger guy, lives in a poor neighborhood. You know, he was working with the car guy, basically as a repo dude. And then Trevor is this ex-criminal who's kind of, he's not really laying low, but he's basically living in a trailer park. They're like biker gangs everywhere. And it's funny because someone has actually done a comparison to see, because in GTA 5, you know, the police, you play as any of those characters, they can come after you. They did several tests, because in this one you also have the ability to kind of like talk with people, just like random NPCs. You can push X if you're in front of someone and it'll just be like, hi there. and they'll just like, get out of my face.
Get the hell out of here.
But they did a test with that, and they did a test with the police in each of the different like counties in the game. So they'd walk past his Franklin and like try and talk. They'd walk past his Trevor, try and talk, and walk past his Michael and try and talk. And the amount of times it took you like engaging with them and antagonizing before they pulled their gun on you was different for each character.
So
in certain areas,
wow.
Trevor and Franklin would just instantly, or if you, because I mean GTA, it's known you can walk around with a rocket launcher just in the middle of the street. No one really cares unless you aim it. No one cares. But you know, they tried also doing like that, like let's walk around with these different weapons in front of the police stations in these areas and see what they do. And for Franklin and Trevor, the police, they would almost a lot of times instantly aggro you, even if you weren't being hostile.
Damn.
And it was just like, huh.
So they had to take the time to program different reactions to playable characters.
Yep.
And wow.
Yep.
And I think this game came out, what, like 2012?
I think so. About 2012, 2013.
Because I remember I was in high school when
Yep.
it came out.
But so, for Verticality, you begin as Franklin. You in the tutorial, you technically play as Michael and Trevor and them, but we're not counting the tutorial as the main story, even though, because it's just teaching you how to play. It does have a little bit of a plot, but again, it's just teaching you how to play the game. So you start as Franklin, and Franklin is, you know, metaphoric, and he has a metaphoric and a socioeconomic rise throughout the game. You begin and end playing as his character. So you start out, you know, you go on the mission that you have to go repo the Humvee from Michael's son. Michael's hiding in the back, and then he pulls the gun on you, and he's just like, okay, take me, like, let's go back to the place. And he's like, drive through the window. And so you have to drive through the window. And you do that, and then Michael's like, you're not a bad kid, you know, you basically follow instructions. I see a little bit of myself in you. And then, like, tosses him some money. He's like, you know, I'll call you or something like that. Basically, you know, he decides to take you on as, like, his apprentice. And, you know, Michael is a former, like, thief.
Yeah,
like, professional bank robber. So it's just like, so you go from, you know, repossessing cars for this auto dealership, the shady auto dealership, to performing high-end heist. And then after the first heist, you meet Trevor because he recognizes Michael on the TV. But all of the characters you unlock, it's through Franklin. It's your actions as Franklin.
It all
unlocks
starts
the rest.
with Franklin.
It starts with him. So then, you know, you go through that. You do a lot of missions. Franklin himself, you know, he starts out the game. He's living with his aunt. Throughout the game, as you complete more heists and you get to have more connections with, like, I think, because it was like the FBI and the CIA.
Yeah,
At the
and there was like the Chinese triad and like
there were it was just a lot.
Nuts.
But like as you're getting more connections, you move from that. You know, you move from that life, and then you move into basically like this Hollywood Hills area, and you know you have this huge house, you know, pool, several floor. You have a cliffside view of like the ocean, and
oh yeah. It was
so
gorgeous.
you rise from, you know, this, you know, lower income area that you were in to that, and it's just a drastic change. Eventually, you know, you complete the final heist, and I'll be honest, I kind of messed up in the game because I'm the type of person I sometimes will skip over cutscenes.
Rip.
I'd been playing this game for a while, and I was just like, yes, let's get to the credits. So I accidentally skipped the cutscene. But you talk with one of the agents who you had been working with, and he comes to Franklin. And, you know, this is like, you're all moved into this house. Everyone's good. You're just waiting on the money from this job to come through after they kind of like scatter it and do the thing to where it can be traced again. And he basically gives you an ultimatum. And let's see. And this is where the game, because the game is very linear. You know, it's heist, end. But once you reach the end, it comes out to where, you know, you have a choice. And you have a choice between going after Michael, going after Trevor, or, you know, the everybody's happy, you know, buddies. Well, because I messed up, it didn't get the cutscene. I just clicked Trevor because I didn't know what was going on. And then immediately you get thrown into the final mission.
Oh, no.
So, here are the endings. Oh, Woods. Hey, guys. Hey, Woods. How's it going? What's up? Hope your day has been well. We're discussing some verticality in games.
Yes.
And we're on GTA 5.
This...
Oh, wait. Woods, are you playing? You're playing GTA 5.
Oh!
Spoilers.
Oh, no, I forgot.
How...
FIFA, Woods. Oh, yeah. Because... Doing okay.
I've been playing this since it was free.
Oh gosh, yeah, because that ending has some spoilers.
There are spoilers.
Some major spoilers. So let's just Oh gosh.
I'm warning you.
Sure,
so if you want to mute it, you can.
Oh Lord.
Poor Woods. Oh no. I was just like, I know you're playing it. I don't know if this is the first playthrough though.
True. Oh gosh, scary times.
This is scary times.
Hours. I beat it way before.
Now in 13 hours and 71 heads.
Dang. Oh, 71% headshots. That's really good. Okay.
Well, Woods is just... That took me several months.
And high FIFA. Damn.
Sorry, guys. I'm half asleep. Hopefully catch you guys soon. Have a great stream. All right, no problem, FIFA.
Yeah,
and definitely,
totally.
have a good night. Get some rest.
Sleep, because it's approaching on 4 a.m.
Yeah.
There, I think. Oh, my goodness.
But okay, so Woods... so we're good.
We're gravy.
But yeah, we're talking about verticality and how you begin as Franklin, and it's his metaphorical and socioeconomic rise throughout the game. And you know, you talk to this guy, and you have several options. You can either pick, again, Michael, Trevor, or the good ending. Essentially, I picked Trevor because I was just like, sure, I don't really play as him that much anyways. So, sure, I didn't have an attachment to the character. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Is he going to go to jail? Whatever. But let's see if I can find. I think, is this going to be the first one? I guess let's just keep it playing.
I think.
Because I think that one's auto, the one I did, which is funny.
Oh, yeah, I picked option
A,
C.
B, or C. That's it.
What? Oh, yeah, I always hated that guy.
Yeah, everyone hated that guy. And
like, oh, there's a very strong sociological aspect to this one. Every character is different. Yeah, that's what I loved about it. Is it was so okay. Ending 1 of 3.
Yeah, it was very different compared to the other games in the franchise. This is if you pick Trevor.
Oh, this was the one you picked by not,
yeah, this was
not
my
paying
choice
attention to the cutscene.
by not paying attention. And that, okay, I'm gonna pause on that. That was a thing, because there's all this discourse between Michael and Trevor because they were partners. Michael, basically went into witness protection. Trevor was basically on the run, and their other buddy died. And the whole time, Trevor thought Michael was the one that was dead. He thought the other guy was arrested, but no, he was dead. And so there's just all this discourse between them the entire time. So Franklin, Trevor calls Franklin the peacemaker. He's like, I know what this is about. You're the peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
You're the outside party. So you're the one who's supposed to either bring us all together.
Yeah, bridge the gap.
And bridge the gap.
I mean, it really is how it was, but he was an endearing character.
He was,
man.
and it's important. And then
Wait, is he driving a taxi cab?
I mean, if it depends on what you took to get there. Something random I noticed is that Michael's son looks exactly like the partner that dies in the video. He does. He does. There were questions about that. There were questions.
That's... Oh, yeah, because I remember he has problems with his wife and the golf coach and a couple people. And...
Yeah.
Oh. That's
yeah.
nuts.
But that was, like, again, that's little details in games that make them so interesting, because you're just like, wait a minute. And then, like, the way they talk about, like, his wife, like, Trevor's responses to her.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, just driving down the highway. I can't even imagine, dude, how nuts you'd have to be to, like... Well, I mean, Trevor is insane.
He is insane. Let me see if I can,
Oh, just fast forward a little bit.
There we go. Oh,
Oh,
crap.
god!
Well, shit.
Rip.
I tried my best.
We tried. It should be, I think, about 6-7 minutes, somewhere around.
Okay. Because then you call Michael.
Oh, so was he collaborating with Michael?
Yeah, you start because you call Michael and you're just like, they called me and they told me to pick, and basically y'all decided to go after Trevor.
Oh, Lord.
But yeah,
Brutal.
Trevor says, I've always been straight with you. I've always been true. And yeah, this happens.
This is just sad.
It is.
And I guess put down Trevor. Jesus.
Yeah.
This is...
Yeah. It doesn't even... You think you can just shoot at him, but nope. This is important. Oh my goodness.
Oh, the old 360 messages.
That's how you know how old this is.
Human stew? What the hell?
He just got
There
cooked
were some
alive.
weird things with Trevor, I guess. I remember one time I switched to his character and he was shoving a foot down the toilet. And just part ways.
Basically. Yeah, you part ways.
It's like, this is like a movie at the end, too.
Yeah, it literally was very, much like a movie.
Funny thing is, I got a very different
You got,
ending
and you got
altogether.
You got,
Oh yeah,
the
because I think
teamwork
that's the start of that ending.
that you got.
Yeah, because like...
Okay, so we'll hop to yours, because you also played and got a different ending.
Because basically you have to call like Michael and Franklin together, because I think you stole a bunch of gold, and like you hop into the foundry to melt it down, and like Lester hatches a plan to like kill everybody after you.
Oh, snap.
Like the Chinese triad guy Franklin goes after, Michael goes after the billionaire that wanted Trevor dead, and Trevor goes after the FBI agent and snipes him like off a carousel.
Oh man.
And like, so basically, and the only way it works is that like you want Franklin to play the double agent on them and call them in like, hey, you know, I got the two of them over by the foundry like they're smelting down the gold, but you just lay an ambush and kill them all.
Oh,
hold
snap.
up. Wood says, I picked for Trevor to die when I beat it, basically because he's so unlike. See, Trevor was insane.
I didn't have attachment to the character, so that's why I just randomly was like, okay, sure.
Damn, everybody just killed Trevor.
It was a character for certain taste. But yeah, it's interesting how you picked the happy ending.
Was so wholesome too, because the other ones are just so.
It's because you kind of basically betray people you kind of were supposed to have built like friendships with.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's the whole thing, like where they're debating who to kill. Yeah, because they're like talking about the triad guy, Dave Norton.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot about. It's been so long since I've played this game too.
It has been a long time.
But yeah, it's really funny all the different ways you kill all the people, because it's just like the whole rest of the game, because you switch between them, and each one does a different thing, and it's like actual teamwork.
Yep, you can, and again, it goes into that verticality. At the end, you begin and end as Franklin, but that final choice decides if you end with teamwork or you end with betrayals.
And it's like I'm trying to think, because I think the final one out of these three kills is like Franklin. Like, but I remember at the end, all three of them are, well, we might just skip ahead to that part and let it play out.
I mean, it goes to
'cause,
each
yeah,
of the
that's
individual people.
all the different people. Oh yeah, a little bit before.
It's so easy to click the
Oh
wrong thing.
yeah, that's fine. Because that's them pulling into the thing.
Maybe Trevor was added to show the difference between good con men and the ones that are more disorganized and psychotic.
Yeah.
Trevor is very much like, and you have that in every Scorsese.
Trevor was very much chaotic neutral.
Yeah. Every Scorsese movie where the dude just flips like Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs, just kills everybody.
Yep.
You're like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, that's Trevor. And oh yeah, because this is such a beautiful ending. Because it's like everything is resolved. They're in the sunset. They just yeet the phones and the thing, just smoking cigars. And then Franklin gets there. They open up the trunk.
And it's the dude who wanted them to betray each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I picked C. Ain't that a bitch? He says.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Because Trevor was just always confused.
So weird that there's like this diatribe on like the dangers of American capitalism as these three con men just yeet this billionaire into the ocean in the trunk of his car. Like, oh yeah, and then you literally just hold E to push the car and just. And it just explodes for no reason.
It just explodes in water. Explodes. Cars in GTA logic.
Oh man, yeah, and that's the end. As friends.
Aww.
And it's like
That is such a wholesome
more
ending.
wholesome ending. And then they're just making fun of each other too.
They were.
It's so.
That was a slightly better ending.
It's like I feel like that's the best ending out of them all. Just 'cause
Yeah.
It's the literal happy ever after ending.
But again, you have this verticality. And it tapers at the end with the three choices. You can choose to betray and kind of just taper off, or you can choose, like you did, work together, teamwork, form a bond, and have that one last rise.
Yup. One
Like,
last heist. The whole shebang.
Yep.
And it's just like that's so perfect, man.
It really is, and it, like, that's what, like, I can see why, I can't remember which GTA it was, but one of them basically, is considered high art. And, high art is very difficult to get, and it was what made video games into consideration for it.
Mm-hmm. Because I know there's memes in every GTA as well. Like GTA 4 was like, hey Nico, you wanna go bowling? It's like, shut the hell up, Roman. And San Andreas is like, catch the damn train, CJ. Like, or the, oh shit, here we go again. Like, oh my gosh.
It's memorable.
Yes.
And it also has replayability. So we were talking with, like, Little Nightmares, where the climax at the end, makes it a little less welcoming to replayability because the surprise isn't there anymore. You know what's going to happen. But this one, it gives you choices. Your actions have consequences, and therefore your outcome can be slightly different.
Right, right. And there's all like stranger missions and the whole that type of thing. It's nice. There is that replayability. Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'm seeing on the screen Dark Souls 1.
Yep.
Which literally the entire game can be summarized with verticality or by the device of that. And because I know that this, I think, is from technically Dark Souls 3, but like...
Yeah, it was tough finding pictures.
Right. It's like, you know, I'm on Dark Souls 2, haven't played Dark Souls 3, but like, look at how perfect this image fits.
Verticality.
It's beautiful representation. You have the mountains that were above, were inside of that, and there's a tower on the mountain. Like, it's perfect imagery. Like,
verticality.
Verticality, yes. Like, but anyways, so basically the entirety of Dark Souls, because from the very point you start, you are in a cell as a hollow dude. And this guy just yeets a body into your cell from the top, and that body has a key for you to escape from. It's like, okay, the whole time you're going through this undead asylum, you're gradually climbing up and out of the thing, and there's this guy known as the Asylum Demon. Typically, at least for my playthrough, he kicked my ass. He just swung a club and I died. I'm just like, well, this is that's Dark Souls, baby. But it gives you the opportunity to take your revenge. There's a note on the floor, even in offline play it's there, it says run. You run and go through that, and you essentially work your way to a fog door where you go through and you're on your little balcony. Now, certain bosses, you can drop onto them, do a plunge attack, and basically jump on their head, do a whole bunch of damage. With me, like, it did about half of his damage and health, and then just kill him relatively easily. And it's like, that's so great, because you get your revenge via means of verticality, plunging down onto him. It's beautiful. And from there, basically, I'm not going to go into every single instance going through, because that'd be like 3 hours talking about Dark Souls, but like, and from there, you know, you talk to the dude. Firelink Shrine itself is on like this cliff face precipice, overlooking, because you can go up to the Undead Berg, and that's where the Belt of Awakening is, and the whole time you're climbing up to that, and you're going through this little bit of foggy cloud layer, and the sun is shining bright when you get up
Praise
there.
the sun.
Praise the sun.
Yay.
It's the meme. We had to throw it in there, and yeah, you know, that's the whole thing. Praise the sun. And like, the sun plays an important role because like, you can only see it from high up.
Yep.
And the other Bell of Awakening is all the way down in Blighttown. Now, verticality also works downwards, because this is the complete opposite. Like, you have to go through this poisonous thing with these bastard guys, blow dart snipers that'll just shoot toxic darts into you. You can't cure a toxic except with one item in the game, and it's just a giant pain in the ass getting all the way down to Blighttown. And then you have to fight a spider that's on fire, and it's just...
Oh, yeah.
It's rough. But, like, the point being is it's very opposite, but in the same way similar to the Bell of Awakening in the Undead Berg. But the problem is when you ring that bell, you gotta climb your way back out, because you haven't unlocked fast travel yet. And that is also a arduous grind through there.
Yep.
Verticality also in Dark Souls, meaning that you can fall off of every surface, get knocked off it. I probably died to falling more than any other thing.
Oh, fall damage. How we love it.
Yep. You died. Plays across the screen. But you learn to live with it, because it's just the way the game... Like, you are going to die. Like, unless you are the Happy Hob, and you're just a god in Dark Souls, then, yeah, prepare to die. But the other elements of verticality in Dark Souls, like...
Because I see it's saying, you must ring the bells of awakening to
my
rise
goodness.
from the undead and link the fire. It's okay. I just put text.
Oh, to summarize, yeah. And it's like, once you ring the bell, you go to, like, the Sen's Fortress thing, and, like, the whole of the game, you are ascending or descending. Like, Sen's Fortress, you have to climb to the top through all of these traps. They call it, the fun house, because it's a freaking whimsical amusement park attraction, basically, at some points. And on Orlando, you have to, again, constantly ascend. And it's like, the funniest thing is Ornstein and Smog, they're infamous, though.
Yep.
But the verticality, it's so subtle. You'll notice there's 2 elevators going up to, like, Gwendolyn, the queen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is gigantic for Smog's, like, fat self to go up. And the other one is this teeny little ornamental, opulent, like, staircase that, like, spirals up. And it's just beautiful. And it's like, so they even, on that detail, got the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, the 4 Lord Souls, there really isn't too much verticality. Like, one time the platform is collapsing as a boss fight goes on, and that's interesting. But, like, at the very end, this is the thing. You essentially usurp, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, the guy who linked the fire originally and did this whole cycle. There's literally so much lore, but it would take forever to explain all the...
If you can summarize it, that's fine.
Summarizing, basically, beginning cutscene is like, long ago there was like fog and cold, and then fire happened, and like out of this fire came the souls of lords, like Gwyn, Nito, the pygmy, which it's theorized you're the son of the pygmy because Gwyn put his soul into the 4 kings. That's could potentially be a whole topic on itself, as it shows an undead as a pygmy. But like, Gwyn is end all be all. He linked the fire to across a whole realm of like Dark Souls. And so when you kill him, you can link the fire yourself, replace him, but what that does is it restarts the entire cycle of the game. And, like, time becomes a cyclical loop. So, oh gosh, we actually have myself here.
So you apparently chose to light the fire.
Yeah, and it's like, I didn't know that there was another ending until after I finished the game and somebody told me. Because, like, it's a bonfire there. Like, why wouldn't you go there and light the fire?
I remember once you lit the fire... once you lit the fire, it basically restarted the game. It faded, and then you were back in the cell, but you were in like your armor. But you kind of just played it as, it's New Game Plus. But as you said, it restarted the cycle.
Because at the very beginning, like somebody tells you the flow of time in Lordran that's the name of the place, is distorted. In that, like, the problem with linking the fire is it essentially creates a new paracausal timeline.
Yep.
And they just overlap on top of each other. It's why
because the purpose is to go to it each time.
And it resets a simulation. But the problem is like, that's why people go hollow, is because if they die, they come back, but they lose a bit more themselves each time, like their souls, their humanity.
Okay. And
you go hollow, and like the chosen undead, it's thought that he's a pygmy because you don't ever truly go hollow, and people will comment on it.
Yeah.
And like it's so I guess. And the other ending is you walk away and destroy everything, but that's arguably the way it's meant to be, because that essentially ends that timeline.
Because I'm assuming if you walk back through that mist, this is what happens.
Right. Which I haven't seen this before, so I'll shut up.
Okay.
There's more than one? There's like 10. That music, though, dude.
This is kind of a little bit more epic than the other one.
Let true dark be cast upon the world. Our Lord hath returnest. Because, like...
F.
Oh, F. But, like...
Just me
that's
F.
really interesting. Because, like, Keenseeker Frampt appears when you activate the 2 Bells of Awakening. It's like, oh, you know, an undead who can finally succeed Gwyn and do the thing. And so then he basically tells you to get the Lord Vessel, kill the dudes, go then kill Gwyn, and, like, whatever. And so... you do that, but, like, our Dark Lord hath returnest.
Does that play into what you were saying, that there's the lore that you were the son of one of...
Oh, the
or
pigmen?
the spawn of one of these...
Potentially.
Because they're saying, our...
Lord.
Your Highness.
Yeah, Your Highness, and they do the thing. And I think that's because, like... And there's a lot I feel like I'm gonna have to, like, go to the wiki and stuff and read up on, because the interesting thing in Dark Souls 2 is every single item, everything you pick up, you can, like, press square, look at the stats, but it also has a description.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, like, bits and fragmented
that you can piece together to form a story of why is everything like this.
Right. And, like, my biggest thing with Dark Souls is it's very much a land where you feel like everything cool has kind of already happened. Like, the battle.
Because it's very dark, as opposed to, I know you've been playing Dark Souls 2, and, like, I saw that one, and it's just bright, sunshine everywhere.
And things feel alive. And
there are other, like, characters that aren't just things you have to kill.
And the music has, like, chimes and high notes. Like, it feels like a world that's actually alive that you're going through. And, like, dragons are in Drang Lake, too. But, like, an unpopular opinion incoming, I'm liking Dark Souls 2 more than Dark Souls 1. So,
but as far as verticality in 1...
Right, distraction.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Just because you haven't finished 2, so... I don't know if you can give, like, full verticality on that.
Right.
As opposed to the first one.
But as far as the verticality, like, it's beautiful because a dark ending or Link the Fire ending, both of them are technically canon. Because, like, in the beginning, you know, there were, like, those ancient dragons, eternal, and there was just, like, dark and cold. And it's a reversion to that world state.
Yeah.
Like, either one works, and every time the undead is one of those paracausal or, like, temporal timelines where, and there's infinite timelines, because a fire is linked or doesn't link, it doesn't matter. And technically, every single hollow is one of the players in the game, is a theory I heard, and it's technically canon because those are the ones that have given up.
Interesting.
And,
so
you know,
it's essentially Dark Souls is more of don't give up, continue.
Right.
You're not allowed, you know, keep going.
That, I'm actually glad you mentioned it. I was about to end it, but that is one of the other most important themes. Because it is a very oppressive game, you know, it's famously, like, get good, the difficulty, that type of deal, but, anytime you go to a bonfire, you'll see these little, like, not skeletons, ghosts.
Like ghosts, yeah.
Of other players in other worlds. You can be invaded by other players, you know, when you have humanity, but conversely, you can summon somebody to aid you in the boss fights and against certain things. And it's like there's orange soapstone where people from other worlds, or you can leave a message in other worlds. This is basically a similar mechanic Death Stranding had, where people can leave the bridges or the climbing anchors online.
So I know you're playing that now too.
Yeah, and it's beautiful starting to see the links, but yeah, you are just, you know, accompanied enough to where you don't feel alone.
Yeah, to where it doesn't feel like it's impossible to complete, because it's a challenging game, but you have help if you choose to read those things. I know they like give you hints. It's
right, like treasure ahead,
watch
like
out.
bonfire,
Praise
jump,
the sun.
praise the sun.
Yeah.
There's tons of memes too, which that's its own funny thing.
Yeah.
But like even the NPC characters, like some of them will betray you and be freaking looking at you, loud trick.
Yeah.
But other ones will be super helpful, like the Pyromancer, and this was very much kind of the motto of the series. He says, "Don't you dare go hollow," when you leave him. Or Andre the Blacksmith is like, be careful out there. Neither one of us wants to see you go hollow. And the whole thing is like, don't give up. Like, yes, this is hard. Which, again, this is another topic we actually revisit. Like Dark Souls is an allegory as well for like life and depression. And again, that's
another topic.
Topic for another time. But for
that's
verticality, I think we've covered it all with Dark Souls.
Okay. And so then, next up on the list, Red Dead Redemption 2. We're going to focus on 2. Arthur rises through the world from an outlaw to a good man. Granted, choices, this is another one of those games where your choices matter, and proves anyone can change if they choose to. So, with Verticality, with Red Dead 2, I never played the first one. So there were things that happened, because I remember we were playing this, and like, we were both in like opposite rooms playing this, and like, if something would happen, I'd call you.
Hey, get over here.
But there were also things where if I was playing something and you noticed something that alluded to the first game, you would react.
Right.
Hence the strange man. Because I remember the first thing I did was was playing it, and you were like, I think you had been at work, and I was like telling you what happened in the game, and I was just like, oh yeah, I went, and this was like after the epilogue. So this is after I did everything with Arthur. So epilogue, I'm playing as John, and I go to like Armadillo?
Yeah, Armadillo.
And I talked to, a store owner, and he has a picture of a man with a top hat on. And I hadn't played the first game. I was
shook.
And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I got the picture, and he was just like, I don't know. I just keep it around. And Armadillo was kind of like going through issues.
The cholera outbreak.
Yeah, they have this outbreak, and it's just very rough. And so I'm telling you this, and I mentioned, he has a picture of a man with a top hat, and I just see you just...
Yeah, like, eyes, like, bug out, and, like, because when I heard that, I was just like...
And I was just like,
no.
What?
Like, they made him come back in this game, too. Because, like...
And, like, as someone who hadn't played the first one, I didn't have that impending kind of, like, dread. Because I eventually, like, after it... Because, like, there were other things. There was a shack I found. Other people found it as well. Because I was trying to 100% the game. So I was finding all of this exploration stuff and lore stuff. And you find his shack, and on the walls there's like a lot of different writing. It mentions the guy you first meet when you get to Valentine is Arthur.
Jimmy Brooks, yeah.
And it's like Jimmy Brooks, and he runs into crooks, and based on your decision whether to spare him or to let him go.
Right, it'll change.
It changes.
The poem.
But also on the poem, it goes from the mountain
to the cave.
To the cave, yeah, or something like that.
Something to the grave, and like, but that's also the story of like Arthur in the camp,
and it's very much you begin, the game as Arthur. You're on the mountain with Dutch and everybody after y'all have run away from Blackwater. Arthur doesn't really know what happened in Blackwater because everyone was like doing their own thing, and then there was like the separation, and then you meet back up. And then it's like, what happened? And no one's really telling him what happened.
It's all just bad.
Yeah, it's bad. Then you go down from the mountain, and then you go to Valentine. And you're basically in like this plateau in the woods. Before you do that, you're also, and this is important as far as verticality, you have the O'Driscolls there. You hear they're at this farmhouse. Farmhouse belonged to Sadie and her husband. They killed Sadie's husband. You find Sadie, you take her with you. And, like, playing the game, I had forgot about Sadie at the beginning because once we hit Valentine and I could explore, I just ran off and explored for months. Like, in-game months, real-time months, I just went and explored and did everything. One day...
Chapter 2, man.
Chapter 2 was fun. But at one point, I, ran... Like, I came from the back of the entrance rather than the front. And then I was like, whose tent is that? And then I was like, there's a tent. And then I realized it was Sadie. And she was just like, didn't want anything to do with anyone there. She was just very, like, she was on, like, a little flat plateau that was slightly lower than the rest of the camps. And this is also important as far as verticality comes. Because throughout the game as you're playing as Arthur, and it's also, because, you know, how much you interact with the camp is also important. Because it gives you additional lore and quest and stuff like that. So for Sadie, like, you'll notice that the further you progress in the game, the more, you know, a part of the group she becomes. The more you see her walking around as you do, like, story missions. And eventually, you know, she becomes, you know, she's outspoken again. She's not just this widow who's grieving. She's angry and wants revenge.
Yeah,
and that's a big thing.
She becomes scary.
And yeah, she really does become kind of scary. But it's cool because it's just like, yes! And like, so you have not just the verticality with the main character, you have the verticality with the secondary characters. Mm-hmm. You want to jump in?
Oh, sure. One of the things I was going to jump in is you mentioned the strange man, and there's a couple of parallels with the first one, and I'm going to be a little bit brief because overarching is Red Dead 2, but like, because a strange man in the first one, the first time you meet him in each of the 3 playable areas, because you start where the epilogue is in Red Dead 2, Armadillo, like Texas, basically.
Yeah.
Then you go to Mexico, and then you go to, like, West Elizabeth, that whole area, and the first time you meet him is, like, he's overlooking some cliff, and I think he tells you, he has some weird premonition, like, there's a man in Armadillo, and he's about to cheat on his wife, but he gives you the choice to encourage him and give him money, or to discourage him. He's like, I'm not interested in doing right or wrong. And he's talking about, like, you know, but he says, I know you, John. And the stranger quest says, I know you. But you get the dread and eerie vibes already.
Because you don't know who he is.
He's like, yeah, and John's like, do I know you? He's like, oh, you know, you've forgotten far more important men than me. He's like, but you haven't forgotten Heidi McCourtsmick. This is where it gets really interesting. Because he says, like, she was a girl that Dutch shot through the eye on that ferry in Blackwater. And of course, you don't think much of it in the first game.
But in the second game, it becomes a very prevalent thing because you're talking with Hosea as Arthur, and he's, like, trying to tell you what happened, like, as you're on your way to stuff, and he's like, it was really bad, that girl didn't deserve that. And they just say she didn't deserve that. And again, as someone who hadn't played it before, it's just like, you know, how it is in the first game where you're just kind of like, okay, whatever. It's not important. But once you put the two together...
Yeah, it's like, oh. And there's another time where, like, because in the first game, you kill Dutch as John Marston. And you basically, rather than you kill him, he does one of those, a truth will set you free, and he, like, cross dives off the back of the mountain. The agents you're with plug 2 rounds into him and say it'll look better for the papers.
Yep.
And there's just such a disconnect, and it's just like, wow. But Dutch, also, one time when you're in Blackwater, there's a mission where you're having to, like, escape, and he takes a girl hostage. John is talking about, like, you know, you don't need to do this, Dutch, and there's that parallel in Bring Back where it's like, this isn't the ferry, you know, like, you don't have to, like, but he loses his, and then he's like, John, like, always a softie for the women or something. He pushes the lady to John, and you think it's good, but as he pushes her, he shoots her in the back of the head, and then uses that to get away. that also gives a bit more context to what might have happened on the ferry and how it was botched and went so bad.
Yep.
And it's like, there's so many...
Because you also, if you think to Red Dead 2, you know, Dutch, I have a plan, you know...
I have some goddamn faith, Arthur.
But there's also a little verticality with his character, and then it shows the verticality followed by... It shows the rise followed by the fall, because at the end of Red Dead 2, Dutch is fine, you know, after, you know, Arthur dies, you know, go with Sadie, it's, you know, revenge, you're going after Mike. Dutch is there too. You aren't expecting him to be there. He's on a mountain. So you go from a mountain to a mountain at the beginning. And
somebody dies both times on the mountain.
And Dutch...
Actually, because it's tall trees they go to, right?
What?
Oh.
I don't remember.
It
but
might be the same mountain, if I remember. But I'll have to look up on that. I'm not...
Vaguely. Yeah, because there was just so many mountain ranges.
Yeah.
But you go back to the mountain, and, you know, Dutch leaves. And so that's the last time you see him in this game. But, you say in the other one, he chooses to fall off of...
Yeah, which,
like a cliff or something.
It's a very interesting tie-in, because in the epilogue with John, Dutch is the one who shoots Micah, and that sets off the Deadeye thing of you do the, you know, taking shots.
Yep.
And then it's just like, oh snap, like, it just got real. And then he basically walks away and is like, I'm not interested in the money. Because in Red Dead 1, he basically takes over an Indian tribe and tries to fight against the government to get their land.
And that was another thing, because if you do all the exploration in Red Dead 2, there is a lot about what's going on during this time period in this world. You also have Arthur. You meet Rains, Eagles Flies, and
Rains Fall, I think it
and the colonel that was trying to help them, you know, save the reservation, and you know, you do that quest line, and you come to a point where, you know, the whole, like, I played the honor route. That was the decision I made. I was like, I'm gonna do this all the way to the end, and this is after, you know, Arthur, you find out you have tuberculosis, so Arthur is a dead man walking at this point. It's like, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, back then that was death sentence.
But eventually, you know, he helps this colonel get away because they were going to, like, basically kill him for trying to help rather than trying to just do with it. Yeah. And so, I think, is that the clip we have? Let's see. Click. It is. You meet a nun, and the nun is from, you know, some of the little stranger quests. And, you know, some of those don't seem important, but they actually are, because after a certain point, some of the characters who you were a direct cause in their fall, you can choose to help them. And if you were playing, like, if you were at a neutral honor point, those would shoot you all the way up
to max
honor, completing those missions. And so those were had more weight than the others. So the game wanted you to be a good person.
Quite literally, Red Dead Redemption.
You wanted you to redeem yourself.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, their Arthur looked a lot more stylish than mine did. I was in a little pirate hat with a giant...
I mean, your Arthur was overweight too, so...
Just a big old butterball.
Mine was just, he couldn't eat enough with me, and it was just like, he is very underweight. The horse is underweight. I don't know what's going on.
Granted, when my Arthur got tuberculosis, like, they were not obviously overweight anymore.
Yeah, they started losing.
Might have helped, though, beefing them up. Oh, yeah, this was
You meet the nun again.
Oh yeah, poor Arthur.
And it's like Arthur's just very sick.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, trying to play it off at first, but then it's just like
I can't. Yep.
it's like then you realize like how much of a
Horrible person you were at the beginning.
Yep. And it's like, did I really do this for the camp? Did I have to do it? And then it's like, the arc is redemption and forgiveness. Because the sister is like, I mean, you beat a man to death, but like...
We all do something. We've all done bad things.
Yeah, I've seen you do good. Whoa, what the... This is different dialogue than what I got.
Whoa, you got different dialogue?
Yeah, because he mentioned his son and wife to
You were lower
Falls,
honor.
But he...
You were lower honor.
Oh yeah, funny story that in the start of the game.
Everything you tried to do, you just had a lot of tragic mishaps.
Yeah, I was trying to get a challenge on a train by like shooting the eagles from a moving train, but they didn't tell me that would lower my honor. I'd get the police called on me, and if I wanted to live, I had to kill everybody.
Honor just dropped. Low honor.
Tanked. Then I had like $1,000 bounty. It was a problem when I played the game.
You did. You had a bounty in every county.
I miss Arthur Morgan.
I do. Everyone misses Arthur Morgan.
This makes me want to...
It really does.
Go back and
But then he says this, I'm afraid. And after this, basically after this is when you start getting the quest lines to where you can, that your honor shoots up.
Oh yeah, like helping
with Mrs. Downs,
Miss Downs
and her son.
With the debt, you give the Indian guy's thing back because it was like an engagement ring, and like his pregnant wife is right there, and it's just like, I can't, man.
You also have, other people who were, because you had like this woman, her husband was working in the mines, took out loans, and you go, and it's like you can either you can give the money from your pocket essentially.
Right.
And like by that point I had done all the treasure hunts, so I was richer than the camp.
Yeah.
I wasn't really putting much in the camp. I was putting enough to where I could upgrade, but that was it.
Also, rip when you go to Cuba, lose all your money, come back, and don't have any of it back. Just repressed memories.
Ooh, that hurt. That hurt. Oh man, that hurt me.
Yeah, the end of the game is very much such a beautiful, like, and it's not cheesy or like a Hallmark movie. It makes sense.
Because there are still choices even at the end. Basically, you can choose to help John escape. To save him so he can be with his family. Or you can choose to go back in the cave and get the money. But if you do that, basically what happens is the music is completely different from everything else.
It's like a hip-hop song, like, that's just dropping, like, heavy beats, and you're like, what?
Then Micah and Dutch were there, and like I told you, he was going to come back.
Yeah, and I did that in a second playthrough. I was like, what the hell is it? Because, like, he has a dual-wielding pistols, like, the song is bumping, and you're just like, this is... Because the whole rest of the game, it's like this old-timey cowboy, like...
Western,
like, it's so... But rather than break the immersion, it's seen as, like, not necessarily...
you chose to be a bad person, and so...
Yeah, the game is very much like, this is different from the rest of the story because it's not...
have chose this
option. It very much feels like you weren't supposed to do that.
You really weren't.
And so it's just like, what? And yeah, it's like, I don't want to spoil the ending just in case.
It's been out for a while though.
Oh, true.
But also what happens once your honor system plays into effect, once you die, your grave. It's a subtle thing, but if your honor was low, it'll just be a grave, with Arthur Morgan. High honor, it's completely surrounded by flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also, again, you take the verticality. You begin the game on the cliff as Arthur Morgan. You have this plateau. Then there's the rise, kind of the fall, but then the rise again. And then once he dies, he's buried on a cliff overlooking everything.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I was going to mention with the honor system as well, like, it's very interesting because you can get subtle changes on those endings depending on your honor. High honor, like, Micah basically leaves you to die and Dutch walks off. Low honor, Micah will actually shoot you in the face and you die right then and there. And Arthur is like, and he's like, you ain't better than me, Arthur. And he says something like, then damn us both. And he just shoots him in the head and walks off.
Yep.
And I don't know if honor matters in the second playthrough because I only saw my one. But, like, basically, you get stabbed to death by Micah. And then it was like, it was always about the money with you, Arthur, wasn't it?
Yep.
Blackwater this, Blackwater that. And
yep.
you're just left there to die. And, one thing... Because the verticality, I think we talked about the camp too, that it started on the mountain, then Horseshoe overlooking Valentine.
But that was very much like a plateau, kind of hidden.
True.
Then you go to that camp that's kind of at sea level.
Oh yeah, and Rhodes.
Yeah.
Like the...
sea level camp, and then as it starts to progress up again, you go to...
The swamp.
The swamp. You go to Beecher's Hope, like the cave area.
Oh yeah,
because
Beecher's Hope was John's ranch in the first.
Okay, that was the ranch. Okay, never mind that. But you go to that, and then you go. That's basically where it ends. Is that cave?
Yeah, just everything goes to hell in chapter 6.
And because you start, the fight out. And you die on the mountain if you choose to help John.
The last thing I was going to say, just super quick, and this reminded me with Beecher's Hope, is the strange man, because he was talking about Heidi McCourtsmick and the thing, but you see him 2 more times. Mexico, I frankly forgot what happens with him in Mexico.
And you see him at the end.
But at the very...
Like, once John comes back, you see him at the end. And I looked into this because I was like, what happened? And he basically says, what does he say?
Because I'm going to have to remember. Cause
I know you...
It was... Because
John is like, I don't know. Who are you?
It's the last mission before John, is gunned down by the federal agents and betrayed and killed. But he's on Beecher's Hope on John's property. And John is like, where do I know you from? And so he's basically talking in, like, esoteric terms about, like,
the mountain.
And he was saying, like, I'm nobody. Or because he was basically saying, like, you know, because at the end, John is like, tell me where I know you from or I will shoot you. He's like, I'm not afraid of death, John. And it's something like, I've been there before. And then he's like, damn you! And he says, many people have. But as he plugs like 3 rounds into his back, he doesn't
fall.
Drop,
he doesn't
react
stagger.
to it. He just walks like down from this hill
and then vanishes.
And just disappears.
And it was basically, you know, the thought was he was dead.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper.
Because if you play Red Dead 2, you go to his camp, his little like shack. It has like all the cryptic things, and it's like, say I gave you 2 generations or happiness.
Yeah, or 25 years, like you chose.
You chose, and that was It can be seen as that was Arthur's choice. He could have kind of just said, you know, forget everyone and left. You know, ran off with Mary. But he chose to save John and Jack, his son. He gave him 2 generations. There was also a thing where there's a painting there. And it starts out blank canvas. You go there the first time, blank. You go there the second time, it's got some, like, stuff on it. You go there the third time, and it's the man with the hat. It's a painting of him. And then there's a thing. If you go back after doing that and the painting is there, go back in the epilogue as John. Have him look at the painting. Behind the painting, or beside the painting, there is like a mirror. Because, you know, self-portraits, there's a mirror.
Yeah.
And the man in the hat appears in the mirror. And you turn around, he's not there.
He's stalking John.
He's always been.
And
because from the mountain to the cave, one of the first missions you have as Arthur is to go find John, because he got like attacked by wolves, and you find him and you save his life.
Right.
So it was like Arthur helped John cheat death several times, but death was always following John.
Rather than Arthur.
Because you see, the man isn't prevalent that much with Arthur, but John.
Oh yeah, it very much is with John. And like, the last thing is, because in the first game there's also Undead Nightmare, which was a story DLC, and because in Red Dead 2 I think you see the portrait in Herbert Moon's shop, the like general store in Armadillo, and he is oddly fine and not suffering from cholera, still has his shop open, and it's weird. But in Red Dead 1 in the game, he was very much like, you know, he believed that like the zombie outbreak was caused by like Jews and like this or that, and it's a thing. But like, he gets killed by zombies and eaten by zombies in Undead Nightmare, torn apart. But like, it basically is hinted at that he was the one who caused a cholera outbreak, and then after that, which I think Red Dead is 1899 it takes place.
Yeah.
And Red Dead original is 1911, which you could argue would be a couple generations later, Undead Nightmare after that. And that's when he's murdered and the Undead Nightmare
he had brought death to Armadillo.
Several times. Very interesting stuff.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
gosh.
This one's you.
Bioshock Trilogy. So Bioshock 2 doesn't have as many elements of Bioshock 1 and Infinite, mainly because with it being a Windows game and having it on PS4, it literally just would not ever let me save.
Oh,
I couldn't do it. Like, I saved once and it got corrupted. I tried it again, it got corrupted again, it just wouldn't let me save, so I'm like, I literally cannot play the game.
Yeah.
But anyways, I do know of it, though, but basically, it's that. Jack crashes from a plane and then creates a causal link through space and time. Like, it gets nuts. But to summarize it very, very simply in the verticality aspect, start on the plane, you're reading the thing as like Jack's narration, smoking a cigarette, and on the present it says, like, would you kindly not open until you get to New York? But he's patting the present, and then you hear the thing go down, but like, you crash from the plane, and there's a surreptitious lighthouse right there. You can see on the right-hand side. So you have to swim to that. In there, it has a whole Andrew Ryan, no gods, no kings, only man, which Andrew Ryan is essentially an anagram for Ayn Rand, you know, turned to a man. And so, to make a long story very, very short, and if you haven't played Bioshock, go get the game. I think the Bioshock collection was free on PS Plus.
At one time, yeah.
Is it still this month?
I don't think this month.
That was April. Never mind, but still go play it. Anyways, go down through this thing. You basically just continue descending 20,000 leagues under the sea style, and it's like this beautiful city under the ocean. It's gorgeous, and the whole society that was supposed to be like unfettered, like no regulations, no laws. Everyone's a splicer drug head addicted to like Adam, which is this genetic sea slug thing that gives them superpowers. And so you just fight your way down, and then at like what you think is the end, you kill Andrew Ryan, but it's revealed that you were literally just a puppet. You know, would you kindly is like the Manchurian Candidate activation phrase, and you're like, whoa, and it's like super mind blowing. But you ascend to Ryan's office to kill him at the very top of like rapture, and rapture itself meaning, you know, when the rapture happens, everybody ascends to heaven. That whole metaphorical thing. But rapture, the city, is at the bottom of the ocean, and it was supposed to be a rapture utopia from like the Cossacks and like everything, but and then you fall. After that, you rise again a little bit, and you kill Fontaine, who tricked you. And you have one of two endings, depending on if you sacrifice any of the little sister things, which carry the atom for you to upgrade, level up, all of that stuff. And you either send all of the little sisters in a sub to the surface, again, that verticality, to like go to college, get married, and they basically hold your hand when you die, and it's like a nice sweet ending. Or you exploit the hell out of them and send like nuclear submarines to the surface with like roided out spicers to like take over the entire planet. And that's Bioshock 1.
That is just a complete, just 180.
Yeah! Bioshock 2, you play as like Subject Delta, you're a big daddy, and like I couldn't get much into it, of course, because of the save issue. But like, I looked up the ending online. And it's basically the same thing. You send the little sisters to the surface, and like they all survive and live happily ever after. But like, one thing I remember from 2 is there's this guy Mark Meadows, and he basically it gives the idea that Jack was not the first one to find Rapture, because he basically goes down and he makes it all the way to find Cindy. But like the main enemy of the game captures him and makes him a big daddy, and his daughter turns into a little sister, and they'll be together, but it's this twisted symbiotic relationship that's just horrible. And that's basically Bioshock 2.
It's basically so that's the verticality on that.
But Bioshock Infinite, there's quite a bit. Now, I have played this before. We tried to do it on stream, but for rather obvious reasons, we had to kind of pull that stream off the air. But that's not to say it's not a beautifully designed game in other elements. Like, obviously, the verticality, the whole city is in the clouds. Like, that's in your face. And you go on the rocket ship and you launch in, and you're just like, whoa, this is so cool. And, you know, you go down, but just beneath the surface, there's all of this, like, tension, and, because I'm trying to remember in chronological order what happens. You basically have to rescue Elizabeth, and you go to Songbbird's Tower, which that's more symbolism to the bird in the cage. Like, And then you rescue Elizabeth, and basically Songbird tears it up. You fall super far down, and you nearly die. You wash up on a beach, but like you're brought back to life, and you go from there. And the whole story, like, it just gets darker and darker and more grim. And because what happens after that? Oh yeah, there's a vision of New York in 1984 getting destroyed by all these zeppelins from Columbia, and like rain hell on the Sodom below. And there's that whole dichotomy of Columbia in the sky and the Sodom below, like that they'll destroy, but you find out that Columbia is a terrible society and should be burned to the ground rather than the Sodom. Excuse me, I had a hiccup thing. But after that, you're going through. Basically, it winds up that Elizabeth gets captured. You save Elizabeth, but you board Comstock's blimp for the finale. Or no, you go through Finktown, one of the factories in the thing, and literally the lower you descend, because a whole work camp and all the workers live below the factory in the most squalid conditions you can possibly imagine. Like, just poop everywhere, rotten food, like people dying in the street. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And then they literally have an uprising and violent revolution, and you take part in that. It's super cool. But then, like, things happen. You end up fighting that revolution too, which I think that part is dumb, but whatever.
Yeah.
And you end up storming Comstock's blimp, which is more verticality in the air, and you kill him. And then it's revealed, though, that you basically are Comstock in all of these different parallel realities. And it all comes back to the baptism, where one is you walk away and you degenerate into Booker, and like basically Elizabeth is your daughter, Anna. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Or one, you ascend to Comstock by like accepting, that baptism.
So it's a paradox.
Yeah. And real quickly, because I know we're going a little bit long on time, but real quickly, the DLC, Burial at Sea 1 and 2, goes into that a lot too. Burial at Sea 1 is basically Booker is in Rapture as a detective, and the little sisters Elizabeth is trying to save because she sees herself in them. But she's also killing Booker in every timeline possible to prevent Comstock from coming back again. Problem is she plays God a little too much, trying to ascend to that plane, that she traps herself in Columbia, killing Booker that one time, because like Booker is a reason she got her powers, because her pinky gets cut off, and I'm sure I'm skipping over tons of stuff, but like, again, this is subjects that like YouTube videos, documentaries could go for hours on. I'm trying to sum it up in like 10 minutes or less, but because when she kills Booker that final time in Rapture, she loses her powers and she's basically stuck there. Thing is in episode 2, she doesn't have any powers, and she goes through Rapture. God, it's been so long, but like, she basically goes through portals, and you see the link. The Vigors in Bioshock Infinite are proven to be Fontaine's elixirs, and he was in business with Jeremiah Fink across time and space, because they basically exploit Elizabeth to do that. And what was it? At the very end, she basically tries to kill Fontaine and like get back, but Fontaine captures her, tries to have her like decode this thing, but what she ends up doing is decoding the phrase for Jack, the "would you kindly," with all this science and input. And the final scene for episode 2 of Burial at Sea, it blows your mind, is she essentially is the one who instigates everything. And you find out Bioshock 1, 2, Infinite, all linked because of this. She's the one on the plane that essentially sends him the message. They use like her power to make Jack, because Jack is basically like this roided out genetic freak, and that's why he's able to use Adam without turning into a splicer.
Mm-hmm.
So he came from Elizabeth, and like she's on the plane in the bathroom, and it's a cinematic thing as you see Jack rip open the present, and it's a pistol, and he hijacks a plane, and like it's that ending as everything loops back on itself, and you're just like,
okay.
Wow. But yeah, the whole Bioshock trilogy, that one sentence saying Jack crashes from a plane and then creates a causal link through space and time. That's a one sentence summary of the entire trilogy.
One sentence summary.
But it's nuts. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that sounds insane.
At least play Bioshock 1. Bioshock Infinite, I understand if people, due to certain sensitive subject matter, kind of make their own decisions
I
on it.
didn't do that. I didn't even click anything. First
that's
of all,
really weird, but
I need you to calm down.
I might need a glass of water.
But yeah, one sec. Okay. Because I think what we're going to do, since we still have a lot of slides, I think we're going to cut this into 2 parts.
Oh, part 2?
Yep. So we're going to end part 1 here. We will be back next Tuesday,
yeah,
I believe.
with the part 2.
With part 2. Thanks everyone for stopping by and hanging out. It's been really fun. It's really fun conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot of info.